by the majority leader. I had a program with the same Honorable Eugene on PM Express. And I guess, I don't know whether it was you who hosted a program or one of your hosts, asked him whether they had some discussions with the presidency before taking the decision, the action they took. And he said that they had a meeting with the majority leader. The majority leader promised them he was going to meet the president, and that after meeting the president, the majority leader communicated to them that there wasn't any positive information. And therefore, the president was unwilling to listen to them. Now, they had an opportunity to have this Minister for Finance removed by the NDC caucus in Parliament. Honorable Eugene and his colleagues demonstrated absolute cowardice and lack of principles. They voted against the decision to have the Minister for Finance removed. The same group of people admitted, without anybody forcing them, that a businessman, a private businessman, met them and attempted to bribe them. Nobody asked them, who was that private businessman? They were unwilling and still unwilling to mention the name of that businessman. Who sent that businessman to them? What was the interest of the businessman? So today, you think that I would take any word coming from them? Absolutely no. As a matter of fact, the minister, I will be shocked if the president fires the minister. And I did indicate on your program at the time that Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta was stronger, and he's still stronger than even the president. Mr. Ofori-Atta can only leave office at his own terms, not at the terms of the appointing authority. The man wouldn't go. Isn't it strange that everybody thinks that the man will be made to go when even his appointment, he was the only minister, and I guess in the Fourth Republic, whose ministerial position was waiting for him even when he was unfortunately indisposed. It was waiting for him. The only reason why Mr. Ofori-Atta is still the Minister for Finance is because he uses Ofori-Atta. There is nothing positive.
And when you make that statement, many will challenge you on that. There's no official documentation to prove what you're saying, so we are not able to substantiate that.
It doesn't necessarily need to have an official documentation. Tell me one success story this man can point to. One. Look, the reason why perhaps the man is emboldened of being transigent and sometimes belligerent in maintaining his position and refusing to resign is because you cannot blame entirely the mess that is created by this government on him alone. You either blame it on the president and the vice president. He is only a person who is carrying the decisions that has landed us in the situation in which we are today.
It appears you're creating the impression that this is all about the NPP and by effect the NPP majority caucus. How about the minorities, though? You had two opportunities. Let me just land on that. You had two opportunities. First off, your party executives directed that the appointments committee does not pass or go ahead to approve the nomination of Ken Ofori-Atta as the finance minister for the second term. That was violated. When you had the opportunity to, of course, impeach him as you started that parliamentary process, that equally failed to materialize. So you're part of the challenge, the same situation you're blaming.
I have never been part of the challenge. I have never voted in the approval of this man. I have never. And in fact, when the appointment committee sat the appointment committee vetted him, I granted interview on several media platforms, including yours, expressing my anger over the decision taken by the appointment committee in the report they submitted to plenary. The report which was submitted to plenary was that Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta and the other ministerial nominees were approved by consensus. And for the standing orders, if the approval of a ministerial nominee is by consensus. Now, those of us who are not members of the appointment committee are automatically denied the opportunity to debate and in voting to determine the fate of that ministerial nominee. So remember, when my brother Okujetu was raising the issue, I challenged him and I said, look, if there was a single person who resented, if a single member of the appointment committee said, I disagree with the decision of the appointment committee, and therefore I vote against the approval, the report would have been that Ken Ofori-Atta and his colleagues would have been approved by majority decision. And any ministerial nominees whose approval is by majority decision will then be subjected to a debate and in voting. So we were denied the opportunity. So I never voted in approval of this man because I don't think he's fit to manage that ministry. And I will reiterate him. I know how discomforting it is to our friends in the
whatever
NP.
be the case,
the man is the
whatever be
Minister
the
for
case,
Finance because he uses Ofori-Atta.
right? But whatever
and
be the case,
else.
you have another opportunity now as the minority caucus to support what the NPP majority caucus is initiating. When it comes to the House, will you support that process?
It would be the height of naivety for me to ever have an iota of confidence in the majority members of parliament in the matter of this. Look, there's a popular proverb in the Bani that are from Borwana Yele Kapitri Tema Tunayele. There is a particular community called Tunayele, and they have a particular fruit which was exclusively in that particular community. If you are yearning and craving for that fruit and they sent you to that village, you should be celebrating. You wanted the man to resign. He was not willing to resign. You yourself said that the man was not willing, the president was not willing to act. You wanted the president to fire him. He wasn't willing. An opportunity presented itself. All of them who are now speaking hypocritically voted against the impeachment of Ken Ofori-Atta. You think I should take their word serious? I wouldn't do that. So that is why I'm saying that this man, I'll be shocked if he goes. The president will not let him go. He's more powerful than the president.
Okay.
And the only reason why he's there is that with all the mess, show me one single success story that is attributed to this man. Tell me one.
I'm sure that the conversation will continue. Murtala Mohammed, we're grateful for your time. Also to the Subin MP, Eugene Boache entry. And that's it for Top Story. I am Blessed Sogah. Next is Newsnight.
Ever visited a shop, picked a whole basket of provisions, toiletries, and very essential things you need, battled a long queue to finally pay, only to be told you can't pay to a merchant number? The way that thing they pay, but with Vodafone Cash, there is no problem. Now on Vodafone Cash, you can pay all merchants on all networks. Easy peasy. Aye straight. Aye direct. Aye sharp. From your Vodafone Cash wallet to any merchant's number on other networks. So whether you are buying provisions or fuel, medication or food, whatever the service or need, just pay conveniently from Vodafone Cash to any merchant's number. Simply dial *110# to make payment to merchants on other networks today.
Vodafone.
Wouldn't you prefer an apartment hotel? One that offers the utmost convenience of a boutique hotel while offering the idyllic comfort of your own private home. Oasis Park Residences offers luxury studios, 1, 2 and 3 bedrooms both for short and long-term rental at competitive rates. Our sky swimming pool, gourmet outdoor restaurant, and a fully equipped gym rest on a breathtaking rooftop with panoramic views of the city. Oasis Park Residences, located at Shiashi, Tetekwashi, 10 minutes from the international airport, is the ideal place for all your accommodation needs. Why don't you give us a call on 020-4343-009 or visit our website at oasisparkresidences.com to make your reservations. Oasis Park Residences, more than a home.
My name is Nanama McBrown. Many people think I get what I want anytime because I am popular. No, that is not true. It is because me and Kasano, I like the best, and when I find it, I stick to it. I have found Bell Pack Tea Roll, and I'm stuck with it. It is soft but not weak, strong but not hard. It is just perfect. Bell Pack Tea Roll is smooth and gentle on the skin. Same as Bell Pack Kitchen Towel. It cleans in one wipe. You can soak, squeeze, and clean again. One Bell Pack Kitchen Towel lasts longer and saves you money. It's time you switch to Bell Pack today and experience the perfect paper tissue. Say pocket tissue, table napkins, tea roll, and a kitchen towel. Paper chow. Bell Pack is simply the best. Bell Pack, just perfect.
To be a Bell Pack distributor, call 055-11-44400. Another quality product from Bell Aqua.
Nothing feels so good like Bell Pack.
Good
Good evening and welcome to News Night. We're live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. In Kumasi, we are on Love 99.5 FM and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter Spaces and myjoyonline.com. In the next 60 minutes here on News Night, International Monetary Fund warns of major challenges with the importation of essential commodities and the ability of banks to provide financial support to the private sector. We have details as it calls for recapitalization of such institutions. Also tonight, former President John Dramani Mahama is meanwhile blaming government for the tough conditions the IMF has imposed on Ghana, including limits on wage increase and hiring of workers.
It's also going to constrict the ability to be able to absorb the excess, labor that is in the market. And so that is what we need to put our minds to. And that is the conversation I'm asking that government should have, and government should have had before going into the IMF.
We'll hear his defense of his pledge to restore licenses of collapsed indigenous banks, as he says is feasible and not a mere promise to win votes.
We should have thought through this properly, and that's why I said, why turn a 4 billion problem into a 25 billion problem? We could have used far less money to turn those banks around. Government could have done like has been done in other places.
We hear from Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, who also says the IMF program will enable the nation to stabilize the cedi and improve other indicators.
It's a really difficult space in the global economy with regards to that. Yes, we were, as you know, able to bring inflation to single digits before the COVID, the Ukraine destabilization, and the whole global supply chain disruption. In the program that we have put together, we are very particular about interventions to support the vulnerable. And so that should act as a buffer as we go through this very difficult period.
And then we get into the election headquarters for all the action from Kumewu. And with tensions running high and emotions at their peak, IGP meets parties contesting the crucial Kumewu by-election to enhance collaboration. We are live there. Also, the Electoral Commission has a message for parties and their representatives.
Yes, what I want them to do is to provide effective polling agents, not noisy ones, for them to be at each of the 75 polling stations.
And then the representatives or the candidates themselves.
I'm the chosen one for the constituency, and they believe in my capabilities, and they believe in what I can do for the good people of Kumewu.
The youth of Kumewu especially are ready to rewrite history. So we leave it to the people to decide whom they trust, whom they can trust, whom they think can deliver for them.
And in business, Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison reveals all the first tranche of IMF cash of $600 million will be advanced to support government's budget.
And in sports, Kumasi Asante Kotoko keeps title hosts alive with emphatic win over Kotoku Royals. We hear from head coach Abdullahi Gazelle.
All that and more in tonight's edition of News Nights. Also, as Pharmacy Council files application seeking to place an injunction on upcoming Hotline documentary drugstore license for sale, citing alleged issuance of over-the-counter license without due process. That and more on News Night. Please do well to join us with your thoughts and comments. As via WhatsApp is 055 1111997. I am Emefa. Apawu. Details shortly. Many thanks for choosing us. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. And tonight, the International Monetary Fund is warning of major challenges with the importation of essential commodities and the ability of banks to provide financial support to the private sector. While it blames this on price volatility on the international market and the recently concluded domestic debt exchange program. Well, this is contained in its May 2023 country report on Ghana, which gives interesting insight into conditions Ghana is to meet as it begins implementation of the $3 billion support program. Well, my colleague Isaac Kofi J. Menta has been looking at this document extensively. A number of issues have come up. Kofi, so tonight we are focusing on the commodity import challenge that the IMF raises. What did the report say is accounting for this, and what's the solution?
Right, so with the commodity price volatility, the probability or likelihood of it happening, the IMF has termed it as medium. But if you look at the potential impact, the fund says this is high. And it says possible issues with essential, commodity imports or their cost. And so there's a steep drop in commodity prices due to a global slowdown could weigh on exports and growth, raising social tensions in an already difficult economic situation. These are the policies to mitigate this risk. The IMF is saying government should improve governance, business environment to support domestic commodity production and processing, i.e. oil refinery and diversification. So we need to start doing oil refinery more. And then there's also enhance, social protection to shield the vulnerable from price fluctuations.
Okay. Well, there are concerns also about the ability of banks to provide financial support to the private sector. That's one key issue that also came up. But let's focus on the financial sector. What really is the concern of the IMF?
Well, with that too, the probability of it happening is medium, but its impact is still high. So it says global factors exacerbate the impact of large domestic debt haircuts to banks' holding of sovereign claims on banks' capital adequacy, and adversely affects their capacity to lend and deepen credit to private sector and economic activities. So we know of the DDEP, the finance minister and both the governor have been saying that there's an impact on, banks, and the IMF is saying because of these haircuts, this is probably going to affect, banks and their ability to give credits or loans to the private sector. What must we do? The IMF is saying we should strengthen financial safety nets and closely monitor banks and NBFIs. So the NBFIs, we know they are insurance companies, liquidity as well as asset, quality. We should also design adequate bank and NBFIs recapitalization strategy to encourage acquisition and measures of some if it is needed.
Okay. Well, so earlier, we've also been focusing on the concerns that the IMF had when it comes to our ability to deal with corruption, which they say could lead to some possible social unrest. What really was the concern of the IMF that led to them raising this particular issue?
Also, the issue was captured under the reforms to bolster governance, and the IMF says there's a World Bank worldwide governance indicator that shows Ghana is perceived to outperform most of the sub-Saharan and middle-income countries in many aspects of governance. But Emefa, when it comes to some of the indicators, the IMF is saying the performance in government and government's effectiveness and regulatory quality and control of corruption have deteriorated over the past 10 years. And then also under the risk assessment matrix, the one I just mentioned, the fund revealed that supply shocks, high inflation and wage drops and spillovers from crisis in other countries has worsened inequality, and there's a high likelihood that this could trigger social unrest. The likelihood of this happening is very high and may affect delay in reforms under the IMF program. So they are calling on government to do three things. One, take measures to strengthen governance and anti-corruption frameworks. Two, to implement orderly fiscal consolidation and also strengthen the social and financial safety nets.
Okay, but thankfully the report captures what government has been doing or will do when it comes to this particular concern that it's raised. Right?
Well, so the IMF says that government is committed to continue addressing some of these challenges. So under the fund-supported program, government has actually requested for technical assistance from the fund to conduct governance corruption diagnostic assessment. Government is also committed to addressing weaknesses in the existing asset declaration system for public officials, which currently we know lacks some verification process. A new Conduct of Public Officers Act will be enacted soon. And in fact, it's noted that in this report, that a recent publication of the audit report into the COVID-19 fund was a prior action necessary for approving the 3 billion program. So it was a condition. We needed to publish this report before we had access to the $3 billion loan.
And interestingly, I see that the Gold for Oil program was also a concern in terms of the transparency and good governance in implementing the Gold for Oil program.
Absolutely.
And government is committed to making this very transparent and adhering to good governance in there. But in spite of all this, it appears the fund was also still concerned about this possible unrest.
Well, so for instance, the fund has also been speaking about social unrest. And when we talk about social unrest, it can actually affect education and health. So they've been talking about the free education, for instance. It says education in Ghana, for instance, Ghana spends close to 4% of its GDP on education. This has actually increased enrollment, but it comes with poor learning outcomes. So if you look at the government flagship program, which is the free SHS, it covers the full cost of secondary education, but the enrollment has actually increased, but it is poorly targeted.
Okay, so they identified some key areas and what can be done.
Yeah, so the key identified areas of potential improvement of education spending include strengthening primary education resources, better teacher training, and stronger performance-based funding practices. So teachers are going to benefit from this IMF program where they are going to get training.
Oh, interesting report. Don't give it all out. I know you've been serializing this, and we are focusing on another part of this report starting tomorrow at 6 a.m. Okay, we'll look forward to that. Great job there. Thank you so much. Kofi Minta is a member of our research desk, and we're taking a look at that IMF country report. It's the May 2023 report. We'll be bringing you portions of that. But economist Dr. Prista Chimisibafor doubts that corruption will be controlled in the 3 years Ghana will be under the program. Here's a reason.
I think it's a call in the right direction, but I'm a bit skeptical about the progress that can be made within 3 years that the country would be under the program. But essentially, when you look at over the period, all our IMF programs, we tend to focus so much on the funds that we get.
Exactly.
And then when you look at policy prescriptions that enable us to transform our economy, build on systems and structures so that we can address the inherent vulnerabilities in the economy, you tend not to see a lot of these. So I'll give you a typical example. Under the 2015 ECF program, I think that is when we instituted the Fiscal Responsibility Act and all that. And then COVID came, and under force majeure, we had to put that aside and get back on. I think the document is also getting us get back to the fiscal responsibility at levels of any government not running a deficit over 5% of GDP. I think these are systems that we need to ensure. And for me, my passion is basically on the economic side, because issues like governance and things, sometimes the outcomes are difficult to measure. And so, in essence, we should be more committed to addressing the inherent issues. Like Theo said, if you've been given paracetamol or whatever to control the temperature, we need to get to the root cause of what is causing the rise in temperature. And those are the structural issues.
Well, we'll get to hear from the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, shortly. He's been speaking to the BBC. But former President John Dramani Mahama is today blaming government for what he says are tough conditions that the International Monetary Fund has imposed on Ghana. He argues that the previous IMF deal his government entered into had better terms because his team engaged extensively. He believes government failed to carry out such discussions, resulting in tough conditions. He's been speaking at the 7th Ghana CEO Summit.
EU and everybody was still withholding their grants and all that, even though we're factoring it in the budget. And that is what was creating a bigger deficit, because you factor it in the budget and they don't release the money. And so it creates a deficit in the budget. Then the next year you factor it in again, they don't release the money. So we said, okay, I think they just want IMF as a headmaster to come and stand over us and mark our script and all that. So we said, okay, we'll go to the IMF. And so we did. And when we went to the IMF, we went with our program. The country had seen it, we had published it, we had announced it in the budget, And we had a lot of the things that the IMF agreed, we had put in there ourselves. For instance, in the public sector, we said that we're going to impose a net freeze on recruitment. What a net freeze means, and indeed our political opponents hit us with a gudgel on the head because of that, was that if 30,000 people were retiring from the public services this year, we will employ 30,000 people to replace them. The only sectors that were exempt were education and health, where we're going to employ based on the needs and capacities in the sector. But every other public sector was going to be a net freeze. Now I've seen the parts of the agreement. It says 0.5% increase in the public sector. So there's going to be a restriction in how much government can employ in the public sector. And so the unbridled recruitment of people day in and day out is going to be constrained for the next 3 years. And that is what brings the private sector in.
Okay.
Because if there's going to be employment and recruitment, it's the private sector that must absorb them. But I mean, if you look at the difficulty the private sector is going through itself, in terms of the new taxes we've imposed, high utility bills, it's also going to constrict their ability to be able to absorb the excess, labor that is in the market. And so that is what we need to put our minds to. And that is the conversation I'm asking that government should have. And government should have had before going into the IMF.
Any special policies you propose around this time to enable the private sector to absorb these persons?
Well, there's a time we should have been given tax breaks to stimulate private sector, but we're rather increasing the burden of taxes on the private sector. And that's what I was asking, what happened to the famous taxation to production mantra that was touted? That never happened. Today they're paying more taxes than they've ever paid in the history. But I do think that if the economy stabilizes too, it will improve the business environment. It will bring back some of the investors who have left, some of those who have left to neighboring countries. We should be able to attract them. We should go out of our way on investment drives to bring some of the labor-intensive light manufacturing jobs to Ghana.
Well, Mr. Mahama told my colleague Winston Amwa that his pledge to restore licenses of collapsed indigenous banks is feasible and not a mere promise just to win votes.
I'm aware that there are some criminal prosecutions with misuse of funds and so on and so forth. And that's why I don't want to treat it uniformly. And I said, as far as practicable, those that were unjustly withdrawn, can be restored.
And once you talk about those that were unjustly withdrawn, I get the impression you have a fair idea those that can be restored.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you an example. I said one bank was shut down because there was criminal prosecution against its major shareholder. It had nothing to do with the bank. And there might be other such cases. And so we need to look at all of them and see whether the withdrawal was just or it wasn't. And the point even is, if you wanted to apply the current reserve position with this debt exchange, are you going to shut down the existing banks? The existing banks have been weakened by this debt exchange. If you apply that same principle, you apply to the indigenous banks, you probably will withdraw the licenses of some existing banks. But government is willing to assist to build those banks back. And the question I ask was, why could we not have done the same with indigenous investments in our banking sector? Today, most of those banks belong to Ghanaians. And today, the banks that are wholly owned by Ghanaians in the finance are few. Most of the banks are the big multinational foreign banks. And you don't even need banks to be of the same capitalization because they address different segments of the market. You don't want everybody to be a 400 million Ghana cedi bank that makes big credits to big business. You have small traders who rely on banks like Undum's Bank, GN Bank. I've traveled around this country. Every single district you go, every single community you go, you see that small brick and tile GN Bank. And it was accepting deposits of 50 cedis, 100 cedis, and so on and so forth. And that created a network for private credit to the lowest of the low in our countries, in the rural areas. And so we should have thought through this properly. And that's why I said, why turn a 4 billion problem into a 25 billion problem? We could have used far less money to turn those banks around. Government could have done like has been done in other places. You give the support that the bank needs to turn around, take a part of And as the bank builds back, it takes back its equity, paying the support that you give. It's been done in many countries. Why couldn't we do the same here?
As far as practicable conditions?
Well, we've not done an analysis of them yet, but I'm saying that as far as practicable, if the withdrawal of the licenses is deemed to be unjust, we would look at restoring it.
Great. You also talked about...
So that's former President John Dramani Mahama there speaking to my colleague Winston Namwa at the 7th CEO Summit. Well, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has been addressing issues of concern when it comes to Ghana undertaking this particular program under the IMF. It says it will enable the nation to stabilize the cedi and improve other indicators. He's also been assuring that the vulnerable in society will be protected as well. He's been speaking to the BBC Newsday.
EU and everybody was still withholding their grants.
Essentially, the IMF program, it's supporting our program for economic growth, the PCPEG. It's really to give us budget support because of the financing gap that we have. But I think more importantly, it comes in to support the central bank balance of payment status right now. It should show up our reserves position, help stabilize our foreign exchange rate, and also support the inflation targeting that the central bank has. I think it's building quite a bit of confidence. The intention also is to use the resources towards promoting entrepreneurship, private sector programs, which includes certain economic enclaves that is aiming at self-sufficiency in rice, maize, poultry, and other large-scale agriculture and agribusiness interventions that we intend to have through the Development Bank.
So is the worst of the economic crisis then now behind you?
I mean, we really think so. I think there was a need for this sense of confidence that we have gone through a thorough review with the International Monetary Fund. We submitted a post-COVID program for economic growth, and it is around that the whole IMF program has been structured. We feel that now with this show of support from the fund, I think we are back on the road to rolling out our PCPEG program.
The fundamental problem, though, is that you as a country owe more abroad than you earn from abroad. What is your plan to reverse that situation?
I mean, essentially, if you look at our PCPEG program, it seeks to address those structural difficulties that we are having in terms of restoring macroeconomic stability and bringing sort of fiscal operations and public debt to sustainable levels, supporting certain structural reforms, and then promoting inclusive growth. But more importantly, is currently we import maybe $2 billion worth of food, which really is unnecessary. Some may say even criminal with regards to our Greek potential. The whole issue of turning Ghana into a continental hub and promote Africa trade amongst ourselves is going to be key. I think self-sufficiency in food and exporting are going to be key. Value added to our products is an important element of that. And that would ensure that we don't move into this disparity or discomfort that we have with a dollarized economy in which we are always chasing the dollar, but we'll be exporting more.
The latest inflation rate was 41%. That means prices have been going up by 41% in the past year. And you've introduced new taxes on some products, such as cigarettes and sweet drinks. Do you think Ghanaians are likely to feel poorer over the next year as a result, partly of this bailout?
It's a really difficult space in the global economy with regards to that. Yes, we were, as you know, able to bring inflation to single digits before the COVID, the Ukraine destabilization, and the whole global supply chain disruption. In the program that we have put together, we are very particular about interventions to support the vulnerable. And so that should act as a buffer as we go through this very difficult period. I expect that these structural reforms would ensure that certain weaknesses in the economy are strengthened for us and we won't come back to the fund.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta there speaking to the BBC Newsday. Time for the election headquarters. And tonight there's heightened tension between the New Patriotic Party and an independent candidate as the hours draw closer to the crucial Kumewu by-election. As a result, the IGP has been meeting the leading members of the two political parties plus one of the independent candidates in the race to enhance collaboration among all stakeholders towards a peaceful poll tomorrow. I'll take you live to Kumewu shortly, but let's hear from the candidates in the order they appear on the ballot paper in their final push for vote from electorates in Kumewu. We all know that the NPP has over the years won the seat, but the independent candidate Kwekudia came close to snatching it in the 2020 parliamentary election. Here's Ernest Yawenim first.
I know that in politics you can't be complacent, and one thing that I have maintained is that it's not just about the win, but it's about the margin of win. So if you're able to put up a good show and we are able to get a very wide margin, then the good people of Kumewu understand that, yes, I'm the chosen one for the constituency, and they believe in my capabilities and they believe in what I can do for the good people of Kumewu. So we are not going to relent. We are going to work hard and push to get at least a percentage that would motivate the government to bring more development to Kumewu. I am not going to put out any numbers, but what I believe in is that we are going to do better than we did the last elections, and I'm confident that we'll do more and the government will be happy for what we have been able to achieve by the end of Tuesday.
That's the NPP's NS Yawenim. Well, the NDC's Kwesi Amankwa is hopeful of rewriting history.
Our chances is very great. We're going to win this election. As you can see, it's not going to be a marginal win. It's going to be a landslide victory. The MPP can tickle themselves and have a laugh by passing people to deceive people that they have the crowd. At the end of the day, come Tuesday, Kumewu is going to rewrite history in the constituency. NDC has a candidate in myself, Kwesi Amankwa, who is an advocate for change, who is a visionary, who is ready to develop Kumewu. And now my message is going down. The youth of Kumewu especially are ready for this change, and they are backing this change, and they are ready to rewrite history. And we're going to rewrite history.
Well, we can now hear from Kwekudia, not the one with the hole, but the one with the dove.
So we leave it to the people to decide whom they trust, whom they can trust, whom they think can deliver for them. And I'm doing it with my own money, with my own resources. So do you think if the government gives me something for developmental project within the constituency or the community, I'm going to blow it? No, I'll use it for that purpose. And let me tell you, I'm ready and willing to work with all the stakeholders.
The NPP is expected.
So that's Kwekudia there telling us about what he hopes to do. But residents of Kumewu have been interacting with my colleague Ohiming Teria and Nanaya Ojima. Listen to what they have to say.
First year for Mukwane and Namanamokwai, and year for Mukwai, Yaguso, Yakwana Yadeka, and a man pipi abai, Papa, and Intinya Duma, a brother, Yabetu Abano. Ama ya wanim no abeto adwuma so na ndisi de mo monya wo mo adwen se kumoma pa de omoboa.
This man tells me when he goes to the polls Tuesday to cast his ballot, development projects in this constituency is what will inform his vote, and then he is going to cast his ballot for the New Patriotic Party's candidate in the person of Yawenim. He believes that MPP has performed creditably in this constituency than the National Democratic Congress.
Boom, boom, boom.
All right, me pacho from me kwaku wusu. You don't na bon pa ye say NDC for be win say seat we. As a chire say ye ensuo eye problem kese ma yen. Awurade adom owura John Dramani Mahama ebetena Ghana konwa sesa mampani kumoman wa amehye ye boso obeye nsuo kura mayen wa amfa nka ne policy ho nanso esa na mamuo papa odwene kumoman ho obeye nsuo e de makumoman se me nuanom MPP for kra kasa omo bedi adanse say anopai kro omo abai omo abu pipe adwale e na omo shan MPP atale so omo kɔ rally enu nti sade we o mampani mahama be ye yenti me kwakus me mpai bɔ ne say enka NDC be wini sa city we se me pa chawo abosomfo omo eba ma akonfo ne se enkramofo enso so Mohammed ba ma onyankopɔn asomdue nkan wo mo ne se Christopher enso so omo ba Christo ba ma Christopher a owura Dramani Mahama Obama kumo mindset kumo ajenkwa bedawasi.
So Mr. Kofi also is simply saying that under the tenure of John Dramani Mahama, he was able to provide potable drinking water to the people of Kumawu, and for that matter, he is convinced that the people of Kumawu appreciate John Mahama's efforts to get them water and vote massively for the NDC candidate come Tuesday here within the Kumawu constituency.
So you had an NPP supporter and then also an NDC supporter interacting with Nanaya Ojima and then Ohiming Teria. Thankfully, Ohiming Teria joins us with the very latest from the area where this is your election headquarters. We are watching that closely for you and we'll bring you from when the first ballot is cast tomorrow at 7 a.m. all the way till the last after 5 p.m. and bring you all that you need to know right here on radio, on television and online. Ohiming, you've been monitoring events today in Kumewu. We know that the IGP or the police have been meeting the various candidates and then also the independent candidates as well. Let's talk about what we're gleaning from that meeting.
Thank you, Emefa. It's barely less than 13 hours. The people of Kumewu will go to the polls Tuesday to elect their parliamentary candidate. And today, the Inspector General of Police led a police delegation to meet all the political parties and the candidates for tomorrow's by-election. The MPP were represented by Stephen Ayesu Intim, the national chairman, Justin Frimpong Kodua, the general secretary, whereas the NDC, Joseph Yamin, national organizer, and Fifi Kwete, the general secretary, did also represent the party. The independent candidate, Kodua, one with the Dove, was also present at the meeting, just that the second independent candidate, Kodua, the one who is represented by the whole as a symbol, was missing at today's meeting. The IGP took the opportunity to assure all the candidates that the police, as mandated by the laws of this country, will do everything possible to provide the needed security that will maintain law and order, as well as ensure peace and security before, during, and after the Kumawu by-election. And he says enough police personnel will be deployed to all the polling stations. So the candidates and the political parties also took turns to share their ideas with the police and ask questions in situations where they did not understand. The IGP and his team also took time to explain to them. So the IGP and his team later issued a press statement indicating that the police is ready to provide the needed security. Emefa, I have been finding out from the police what could be happening. The indication is that police in the region and the other parts of the country will join hands, they will join forces to provide security. So every polling station, there are 75 polling stations in the Kumawu constituency. Every polling station will have a police officer manning the police polling station. It's unlikely that police may want to include or invite other sister security organizations to provide assistance in providing security in the by-election.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my colleague Ohiming Teria giving us updates on what we ought to know, especially with that particular meeting between the police and the various candidates. Let me bring in the Ashanti Regional Communications Officer of the NDC, Abbas Nuruddin, joining us live on the telephone. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight, Mr. Abbas. I'm sure you've got some form of briefing from the leadership of your party that attended this particular meeting. I guess they're satisfied with all they had when it comes to security for the Kumewu by-elections tomorrow, correct?
Well, thank you very much, Emefa, for having me. Like Ohimen said, we had a meeting with the top brass of the police today, and the IGP has given the assurance that it is the police that is going to take charge of security on election day. The IGP made it categorically clear that there is not going to be any joint police military operation. There is not going to be national security operatives deployed. The police are going to be the main source of security come tomorrow, and the military may be brought in if there are any escalation. So we are very confident. We would want to hold the IGP by his own words so that we don't see a repetition of what happened in Ayawas, where vigilante groups were clothed in military uniforms to go and cause mayhem. We, from our side, have also given assurances to the IGP that if there will be any disturbances, if there will be any confusion in the Kumawu election, it will not come from the NDC. We are willing to go or play by the rules, and we expect that the IGP will honor his side of the bargain. So, and the NDC is set for the by-election come tomorrow. We have done all there is to be done, and we are very confident that our candidate Kwesi Amankwa will emerge victorious tomorrow by this time.
So I'm interested in the bit about the assurance that the parties gave. At least you say the NDC gave the assurance that we are not going to see any vigilante groups, providing security at the various polling stations. Was it just the NDC that gave that commitment? Do you know?
Well, I can only speak for the NDC because that is the party I represent. So I can only speak for the NDC, that we are not bringing any extra security. We are not making arrangement for any extra security in the Kumawu by-election. We are relying solely on the police force, as the IGP has indicated, that there are enough policemen within the Kumawu constituency to ensure that there is maximum security at every polling station. So we are holding the IGP to it. And if there is any confusion come tomorrow, we would know where to point accusing fingers. It certainly will not be on the NDC. So we are a peaceful, law-abiding party, and we are doing all we can to ensure that there is peace and stability. And we expect the police and the MPP particularly to also play according to the rules.
Well, finally, do we have any indication, at least, was there any briefing in terms of deployment of police officers to Kumewu tomorrow? Because we are told that every polling station, that's at 75 polling stations, will all have security detail. Do we have an idea how many in terms of deployment?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think for the past 5 days, there has been massive deployment of police within the Kumawu constituency.
Okay.
And as you enter the constituency, from Kumasi, the police post is right on your left. So you will definitely see the deployment as you enter the constituency. And we can say that there are enough police stations, there are enough policemen in Kumawu now to ensure that every polling station is secured. Every polling station does not suffer the unfortunate event happened at Ayawaso West.
We are grateful. We are grateful, Abbas Nuruddin. Thank you so much. That's the Ashanti Regional Communications Officer of the NDC. Let's touch base now with the Ashanti Regional EC Director, Mr. Benjamin Banibio. Thank you so much for joining us here on Newsnight. So let's get an indication about the preparedness of the Electoral Commission. You've told us about training, amongst others, but it's almost D-Day. The EC is ready. Everything set? Hello, Mr. Banibio.
Hello, Emefa.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me now? So I was asking earlier, you've told me, giving us indication last night on the probe about your readiness and preparedness for Kumewu tomorrow. I guess the time is near, the hour has come. Is the EC prepared?
Yes, I would say that the EC is prepared and poised to deliver on its mandate come tomorrow. As I indicated yesterday, all the election materials that are required are here with us. Security, I would say that nobody should worry about security because we just finished a meeting. We just closed a meeting with the IGP and his team, together with the regional commander and then the district commander. We just closed from the meeting. An indication shows that a lot has been put in place to ensure effective security tomorrow. Because there are security matters, I wouldn't want to go into the nitty-gritties. What I want to say is that the police led by the IGP has put in place enough measures to prevent and even curb any disturbances. So we are praying on the Lord to lead us into tomorrow's program. And as I've been saying, the Electoral Commission is going to deliver on its mandate. We are going to ensure that the very transparent and verifiable processes are put in place. And in the end, the results that will be declared will be a true reflection of the desire of the people who voted.
Okay. Well,
so, Emefa, I can assure you that everything is on course.
Great assurance, but I'm sure you have a charge for the candidates and their representatives on D-Day.
Please come again.
I'm asking about what the EC would say to candidates and their representatives tomorrow.
Oh, okay. My advice to the candidates and their supporters and the general voters is that they should trust the system. All that they need to do is to provide effective polling agents who should be at all the 75 polling stations. Agents that are knowledgeable. It is not just those who can talk. Those who will be able to distinguish or differentiate between 69 and 96. Those who understand addition of numbers. These are the people they should send to the various polling stations. And when the agents get there, they have to be there throughout the polling period. After close of poll, they should stay and observe the counting. When the declaration of results for the polling station results are completed and signed, they should take a copy. That document forms the basic material for declaring elections at all levels in the country. And so if they get their copy from the polling station, they shouldn't keep it to themselves. They should send them to the candidates who send them. And then the candidate on his own can do his own collation. They can finish before the Electoral Commission because we'll be waiting for the hard copy. But they can do it through the text messages. When they are finished, they should come to the collation center, which will be at the Presby Church in Kumawu, and come and observe what we are doing. So when we pick one polling center and announce the results from that polling station, they should cross-check with all they heard from their agents.
Okay.
And if they did their collation well, we shall all get to the same figures.
Okay.
So the system is so verifiable and transparent. Therefore, they don't need to worry. But what they need is for them to get effective polling agents.
We are grateful. Thank you so much, Mr. Benjamin Banibio is the Ashanti Regional EC Director. And in wrapping up on this in the election headquarters, we know that the Peace Council, the National Peace Council, has also been calling on the Electoral Commission and political parties to do, uphold professionalism. My colleague Michael Papani actually has details of that statement, brings us briefly comments on that.
Yes, so for the statement signed by the regional chairman, Right Reverend Dr. Noben Abubakar, says that first to the Electoral Commission, it tells them that they should exhibit the highest professional conduct to nib at the bud the culture of impunity and violence. And then to the political parties, it tells them that, they should live up to the roadmap that they signed in 2019, their code of conduct. And finally, to the security service, tell them that the security agencies should rise to the occasion.
Okay. Well, for them, they are emphasizing the importance of adhering to lawful processes. And that's your election headquarters. And back to the studios, and it's time for business with George Yafe. We had a monetary policy today, amongst others, loads happening.
Interesting. So they've kept the rate at 29.50%, and for some that could positively impact on lending rates and the cost of credit going on, because other variables could also be impacted by this action that the Monetary Policy Committee has taken at today's meeting. Also, Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison reveals all the first tranche of the IMF cash will be advanced to support government's budget. And also earlier, we were telling you about the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana keeping its lending rate at 29.50%. The business news or Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Life and Ghana Pay.
Isn't life wonderful when everything worth doing is scheduled? Hitting the stop button on your alarm just in time for your morning jog. That happy moment listening to your baby's heartbeat at the doctor's office. Or an arranged virtual meeting with that big client.
Buy airtime ahead of time with scheduled airtime service on MTN Momo. You can schedule your airtime purchase of any amount daily, weekly, or monthly by dialing *170# option 3 and follow the process. Or simply dial *170*311# for a superb airtime purchase experience. You enjoy 100% bonus airtime anytime you recharge yourself with MTN Momo. Keep on talking with that 100% feeling. So, what are we doing today?
MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHS, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
Luxurious affordable living is your right, and no one understands it better than BOT Properties. BOT Properties specializes in modern residential buildings and commercial office spaces. Our properties include the Equator, a 12-story made up of over 100 apartments near Accra Mall. Other Equator courts, we offer you the deluxe living experience with our top-of-the-range homes, high-quality homes built with style and precision to suit your lifestyle. The Equator Court is a gated community with 2-story, 4-bedroom detached houses at Ogbojo, East Legon, near American House. Our office complexes include Zion House, Shiashi, East Legon, Zion House, Sofa Line Interchange, Kumasi. Our offices and apartments are for both rental and outright purchases at affordable prices and with flexible payment terms. Kindly contact us on 0257 960 919 or visit botproperties.com. BOT Properties, the new meaning of affordable luxury.
Prepare for an unforgettable theatrical experience as Image Bureau, in partnership with April Communications and Joy FM, present A Detective Calls.
You must apologize to her at once. Apologize for what? Doing my duty?
The most intriguing play of the year returns to the National Theatre, Saturday 3rd and Sunday 4th June, for 2 captivating shows each day at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m.
It didn't seem like such a terrible thing at the time. Don't you understand?
Grab a ticket for this highly anticipated rerun for only 150 cities at Kuala, Airport Shell, Nalim Stores, Betronat Hotel, Frankie's, or online at www.imagebrogh.com or dial *713*101#, supported by Neplans Car Rentals, Digicraft, Daily Guide, sponsors The Sport Furniture, Saka Homes, A Detective Calls.
Because you are not the kind of father a chap could go to when you're in trouble, that's why. Hey, don't talk to me like that.
This is not a comedy.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has revealed that all the first tranche of $600 million IMF cash will be advanced to support government's budget. The Bank of Ghana governor disclosed this after the bank kept its key lending rate to commercial banks at 29.50%. Details in this Business Desk report.
Speaking at a news conference in Accra to announce the session of the Monetary Committee, Governor of the Bank of Ghana noted that the decision was part of the current conditions under the fund program.
Committee further noted the significant decline in headline inflation from the beginning of the year of more than 12%. The percentage of items in the CPI basket with inflation of more than 50% and above is receding, an indication of a strong return to the disinflation path.
Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, gave more reasons to support the bank's decision to keep the policy rate at 29.50%.
All that means is that we are going to credit the government with a CD equivalent $600 million. So that goes to support the execution of the budget. Obviously, the Bank of Ghana would benefit from the foreign exchange reserve cover that comes with that. So
there was some good news when it comes to the development in the banking sector, as the governor maintained that the banks have picked up strongly when it comes to the first quarter of this year.
Most banks are working towards that. They have been given a period, I think, up to September to submit to us what their recapitalization plans are. And we will be following up on that to ensure that instead of distributing profits.
He, however, maintained that they have submitted recapitalization plans before September this year. The governor of the Bank of Ghana has also been responding to proposals to review the Banking Act. Dr. Ernest Addison maintained that the IMF deal shouldn't be seen as an end to dealing with the current challenges facing the economy, but rather part of the solution in addressing the current challenge.
And that is a business desk report. So this development might influence the cost of credit going forward, as the move might also affect other variables that impact lending rates when it comes to the commercial banks. So as declining inflation rate, all these factors might help in reducing the cost of credit going forward. Meanwhile, banking consultant Nanotu Champon has described this move as a prudent one.
Economic indicators, especially since we are doing inflation targeting, that figure is coming down. So the worst would have been to either maintain or increase, but not to reduce, because although inflation has come down, it hasn't come down to the target that is expected, 8 plus or minus 2. So until then, we should expect that the worst to happen will be maintained until the inflation comes down to that level.
What about those who might argue, or even those who would also say that we've seen the utility tariffs going up? We are yet to feel the full impact of the recent taxes that was implemented. Some are worried that this hike or this moves could offset all the gains that we've made. So maybe another marginal hike could have been more safer than keeping the rate unchanged.
No, I agree with them that yes, the cost of money is still high, relatively high. But on the other hand, it's a necessary evil under the circumstances to try and see if we'll be able to bring it down. And I think the certainty is also preferred to the uncertainty.
And that is banking consultant Nana Oto Echampon. Well, the city's strong recovery in December last year appears to have impacted positively on the country's total debt stock. Now, this is what Joy Business has picked up from persons with knowledge on the computation of the country's debt stock. The following business desk report gives us more details on this.
The Ghana cedi in December last year recorded one of its strongest gains against the dollar to reach 8 cedis 50 pesos from 13 cedis 10 pesos. In November 2022, while a lot of consumers celebrated these gains, it was also impacting positively on other sectors of the economy, like the debt numbers. Bank of Ghana's data showed that total debt stock ending December 2022 stood at 435 billion Ghana cedis. The development represents about 141 billion cedis decline from what was recorded in November last year. The country's debt to GDP ratio also dropped from 94.3% to 71.2% in December last year. But it appears that the numbers will pick up again in the first quarter of this year. This is because from 8 cedis 57 pesos to $1, which caused that significant drop in the debt numbers. The cedi, according to the Bank of Ghana, even as at the end of April 2023, was trading at 10 cedis 95 pesos. So the next time that the debt numbers are published, expect the numbers to go up again, not because of fresh borrowings, but rather the exchange rate challenges, which are seen reversing trend.
That is a Business Desk report. Now, President Akufo-Addo has been making a strong case for an improved regulatory environment to support entrepreneurs in Africa. The president said this when he spoke at the commissioning of Dangote Oil Refinery in Lagos, Nigeria.
Is that successful economies depend largely on entrepreneurs running successful businesses. We need to push vigorously in West Africa the culture of entrepreneurship so that we can grow our economies and become prosperous. There is no greater symbol of entrepreneurship in the 21st century, in West Africa and indeed in Africa, than this iconic Nigerian entrepreneur, easily the equal of the celebrated entrepreneurs of our generation, such as Musk, Gates, Page, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Ovia, and Olumelu. Aliko, as we say in Ghana, Aiko, well done. We've come from far
And that is President Akufo-Addo speaking at the commissioning of Dangote Oil Refinery in Lagos, Nigeria. And finally, Newmont has announced that for the first quarter in 2023, its operations in Ghana, that is Ahafo South and Achimai, paid a total amount of 844 million Ghana cedis in taxes, royalties and levies to government through the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Forestry Commission, and the Ministry of Finance. And that's all for Business on Newsnight.
Thank you very much, George. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Let's do sports, Musbao.
Yes, well, Emefa, it's Kumasi Asante Kotoko because they secured a convincing 3-1 victory over relegated Kotoku Royals in their match at the Dewu earlier this afternoon. The reigning champions, got the win courtesy 2 goals from Cameroonian forward George Mfege and another from Rocky Gamana. For head coach Abdoulaye Gazelle, he believes this win puts the club in pole position to compete for the title with 3 games to go.
And this particular match is a motivation match to us because it's an assurance that we assure each other, both the technical team and the playing body, that the last 4 matches we are not going to drop even a single point. And this one is a motivation to us to go back and get that particular 3 maximum points. I know Caldera 2 is a good side. They are also troublesome. But all the same, we have time to prepare again. We want to bring the supporters back into the stadium, and we are going to do the right things. We are going to put the right things in place, get the right system that we can use to also get that particular 3 points next week.
Final question. With these 3 points back, are you still in contention for the Premier League title?
Oh, for sure, because when you look at the table now, we are now in 4th place. Looking at the table, we have come to the 4th place, and I think if we are able to pick this 3 games in addition, it will be 12 points.
That's Abdoulaye Gazelle, head coach for Kumasi Asante Kotoko.
Thank you very much, Musbao. And you can catch Musbao on the Joy News channel, and he'll be on Joy News Prime. And just before we go, the documentary, which was scheduled to be aired tonight on the Joy News channel, reviews how some officials of the Pharmacy Council and executives of the over-the-counter medicine sellers sidestepped due process in the acquisition of licenses. The expose further shows how some officials demand as much as $15,000 with a promise of helping prospective clients secure over-the-counter licenses. But the Pharmacy Council says the documentary will injure the reputation of the state agency. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has been studying the applications. Joins us with details. Joseph, what really are the details of this application?
So the Pharmacy Council makes the point that as far as they are concerned, the recording of the communication that took place between the council via its registrar and the plaintiff, that is Daniel Akwesi Cranston, the investigative journalist that probed this particular matter, they believe that the recording without the prior consent of the registrar is contrary to Ghana's constitution. And so they are asking that the documentary be put on hold. The court restrains the multimedia group from airing that documentary. And so that is the substantive point they are making before the court, insisting that as far as they are concerned, the documentary does not prove the culpability of the accused officials beyond reasonable doubt as enjoined by law.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joseph Akable. So that's why we can't bring you that particular hotline documentary on the Joy News channel. And just before we go, electrifying tunes from 80s and 90s made a strong showing on cues and lyrics on Joy Prime last night. Here's what you missed.
You give me the sweetest taboo.
my loneliness goes. Are you ready? Oh, I wanna dance with somebody. Misty woman,
I was actually hoping to feel a little bit more fire.
yeah, I got no who, yeah. Ladies, yeah, you gotta shake your body, no who, yeah. There's a slow. Stand by me. Your big child of color, oh. Study know the green, make her go town. She says she no one see anybody near me. She know they follow me, suck off my success. Who don't need my mate, my baby Tracy.
Superstar.
Was.
You are a superstar.
I'll make sure the fire burns to make my beer.
Superstar TZ had
Superstar TZ.
And that's cues and lyrics taking us out. Is our cue to get out of here on Newsnight. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Emefa Apawu. Many thanks for your company. We're unable to bring you That's My Opinion tonight. However, we'll serenade you to good tunes. Do stay on Joy.